Hello, Celtics fans. Welcome into another episode of the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani A. Lunis, joined by Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. Right after a Celtics sweep. Did we see this coming?
Of course we did. We tried to tell you.
I don't know. Game 4 had me on the edge. I didn't know if this was going to turn out the way we thought it would.
Well, Game 4 had me on the edge because of Scott Foster was one of the refs. And Scott Foster traditionally does not have a favorable whistle for teams who are in position to close out a series. That's just not what he does.
Yeah.
But
I saw a tweet that said he made the plot twist. He made the call for the Celtics this time. Adam Silver did.
You know what?
To Scott.
He was kind of low key, not that engaged in the game. Like I didn't feel his imprint on this game the way I normally do most games. I know some people were giving him grief, saying that he was the one that they called Tatum for the 6th foul, but it wasn't him. It was another ref. So Scott, he actually did what refs do. He just kind of stayed out of it. So, and as our good friend Ahmed in the background points out, Scott Foster, 19-2 teams who were trailing in the series are when he's on the call. So the Celtics clearly bucked tradition in getting that win.
And the thing about officiating that bothers me is the fact that we even know Scott Foster's name. When the fact that him and Tony Brothers were trending, I think it was right before Game 2, people shouldn't know the names of the refs. The fact that you clearly have this much of an impact on the game, the NBA needs to do something about it. And also on top of that, players and coaches get fined for critiquing it. But I think if critiquing needs to be done, or if enough players are saying something, there needs to be a red flag somewhere where, all right, we just had 5 players get fined for being upset with the way the game was officiated. Maybe we should look into it. But of course, I guess in the ideal world, that's obviously not going to happen. But it's frustrating to look at that part.
No. I'm curious to see what Gary Washburn has to say.
Yeah, Gary, what do you think? Come on. You've been around the block with basketball refs.
He damn sure been around the block. Stop.
I can't stand you.
Thank you, Mr. Blakely.
You're welcome, Mr. Washburn.
Thank you. I go by Mr. Anyway, I think it was a tightly officiated game. A lot of controversial calls, not controversial, but close calls. I thought that the Celtics it really seemed like in the last 4 minutes, you know what? Like, this is not going to work out for them. This will be Game 5. Nets was coming back. The Celtics offense was shoddy. Tatum picked up that charge on Blake Griffin. Then he had to leave the game. And then he got I had all the makings for KD or Kyrie's going to hit one of them clutch threes with about 15 seconds left. The Celtics will botch the last possession. And all of a sudden we got a Game 5 on Wednesday. But they just made enough plays. Al Horford with that couple clutch shots, Marcus Smart being Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, I thought, missed a couple of open shots that really would have extended the lead, 2 open threes, I felt. But otherwise, play that was aggressive offensively. So, you know what? With Scott Foster games, you just try to survive him, because he's going to make it a show just like Mark Davis, Bill Kennedy. There's just guys around the league, since Joey Crawford is retired and passed the mantle, there's a couple of guys who have come after him who want to, put on a show. And Scott Foster, one of them, and the NBA keeps running these guys out there, so their grades must be okay, I guess. But, would you rather have Scott Foster or would you rather have some of these young refs that be over there, these 33-year-old refs? Sorry, Kwani. They was born in the 90s too, some of them. Anyway, do you want them officiating big games? Is that what you want, or you want Scott Foster, and Tony Brothers and Curtis Blair and Carl Lane and some of those vets? I'll take the vets.
You have to really enjoy to be a villain. Yeah, he'll take the vets too. Yeah, of course. I get it though. Well, the series itself, I think the biggest thing to highlight is Jayson Tatum and his performance. Anyone going into this series definitely thought that Kyrie and KD together they were taking this for the most part. But Tatum showed up and showed out. 29.5 points throughout the series, 7.3 assists. Is top 5 Tatum here to stay? Because he was just on fire.
You got it, Gary.
You guys are speechless. They're speechless at Tatum's performance.
No,
speechless.
I think that it was an opportunity, and although he will not admit it, he understood, and I'm sure was told by all of his friends and family and all of Twitter and all of social media that this was his turn, his chance to prove that he's on that level with a Kevin Durant and one of the top 5 to 10 players in the league. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks or whenever, when All NBA is released. And I want to talk about later the most improved thing, which is a farce to me. But we can talk about
joke.
We can talk about that. We can talk about that in a minute. And something I wrote about and kind of where there's no hope for it. But anyway, I thought Tatum had a solid series. I don't think he shot the ball particularly well, but he shot the ball well when he needed to. He made big plays when he needed to. He made the most big plays of the series. He led the offense. He played great defense. He got steals. He got key rebounds. He didn't back down. Last year, I thought that one play where Kevin fouled the hell out of him on a 3, and it was like, oh, that's okay, Kevin, you can foul me. No, I think, the tone was set early when Seth Curry fouled Jason Hard and Jalen came up and was like, no, don't do that. That wouldn't have happened last year. And Jayson, instead of being in Durant's shadow and being like, oh, KD, which is great. I understand looking up to your heroes, guys you idolize, guys you were literally in their damn basketball camps, where you're taking a picture with the guy and all that. That has to be intimidating. People think, oh, you're just supposed to look at a dude who you admired for all these years and then just be like, oh, you just another trash player. No, you have mad respect. Yeah. You don't want, but I think Tatum's like, okay, I'm through with all that. I'm not going to disrespect anybody, but I'm going to show that I'm the best MF on the floor. Mm-hmm. And I think that was his goal in this series, and I think he accomplished that. And I think, the sky's the limit for him. I mean, the Celtics have him for several more years. Mm-hmm. He seems to like Boston. He likes playing for the Celtics. The coaching change, I think, helped the situation. So this was Jayson Tatum's series to show out, and he showed out.
I thought this was I have to kind of push back a little. I thought Tatum was really good in this series. He shot about the same from the field in this series as he did during the season, but he was a much better three-point shooter in the playoffs in this series than he was in the regular season. So that, to me, from an offensive standpoint, showed him stepping his game up. And defensively, I don't know if Tatum has had a better stretch defensively than he had in this series, the way he guarded Durant. I mean, Durant was like 3 for 18 shooting when Tatum was on him. He scored 12 points against Tatum in the playoffs and had 12 turnovers. That should not happen when you're defending a guy as incredibly dynamic as Kevin Durant, who's one of the all-time, not just one of the greatest scorers of this generation, he's one of the greatest scorers to ever play in the NBA. And for Tatum to dominate that matchup, and I'm going to use the word dominate because that's exactly what he did. He outplayed him offensively. He put the clamps on him defensively, and he sent KD home with a sweep for the first time in his career. Tatum was top 5 Tatum. To me, I think he finally figured out the cheat code. And the cheat code is really simple. You have to be a killer at both ends of the floor. I think and I think a lot of that has to do with Ime. Ime is, as we know, Ime is more of a defensive-minded kind of guy, and he's challenged Tatum in many respects to step his game up at that end of the floor because Tatum has always been a solid defender, but I thought he was exceptional in this series to the point where if you had to kind of do a re-voting of the all-NBA defensive teams, Tatum is probably first or second team based on what he did in the playoffs. So this was top 5 Tatum, a guy that can dominate at both ends of the floor against the best players in the world, which, again, Durant is still, even if he had a bad series, which by Durant standards was bad, but by most people it's pretty good, Tatum dominated that matchup.
And we'll get into KD and even Kyrie a little bit more later on, but you mentioned the coaching matchup, Ime versus Steve Nash. Obviously, Ime won that that he swept, I would say, that matchup as well. But what do you think was the biggest difference between their coaching methods?
I think with Ime, you've got someone who actually wanted to be a coach, had taken a path to becoming a head coach, had made it clear well before he got a holler from a couple of really good players about being a coach that he wanted this job. He benefited from that. Yeah. And I'm sure Gary will get into it a little bit, but having been on that Nets coaching staff certainly was a plus. But to me, the biggest difference is that Ime understands the adjustments game. Ime didn't have like a plan A and maybe a plan B. Ime had like a plan A through Z. And even in this, I'm convinced that there are things that he had in the bag that he didn't unleash because he didn't have to, but they were there. Ime has shown the ability of, and the other thing too, and I'll pass on to Gary, Ime coaches with conviction. Ime's imprint is on this team. You can't say that about Steve Nash. And even when Steve Nash had an opportunity to put his imprint on the team, like when Kyrie missed half the damn season because of just the New York City vax laws, never did Steve Nash take advantage of that and make that team about it. It's always been Kevin and Kyrie's team. And Steve, you just happen to be the babysitter. You're going to get your check, but the kids are running the daycare. The kids they are running things. You're just simply there because they want you to be there. They don't expect anything from you, and that's what you deliver. Absolutely nothing that can help them. So Ime, I'm not surprised that Ime won the head-to-head matchup. I am a little bit shocked that it was as decisive as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he coached circles around Nash. I really don't know the personality of a Steve Nash team. I really don't know what he's there for. Besides, hey, I'm Steve Nash and I'm a two-time MVP and top 75 and I look kind of cool on the side.
He's got nice sneakers. I like his sneakers. His shoe game is tight.
I don't know what he's there for. You know, the staff, Jock Vaughn, a good former NBA coach, a guy who's been around, and some of the staff, quality staff, but I don't know what major adjustments Steve Nash made to get KD open. Whether he decided to make the lineup changes, like it was subtle, like the first couple of games they played Kessler Edwards, who didn't touch the floor in games 3 and 4. He went with Blake Griffin in games 3 or 4. That really didn't work, besides a couple of three-pointers and kind of just like a lightning in a bottle real quick. He did not play LaMarcus Aldridge, who I thought he could have played with his savvy, and LaMarcus has had a 49-point game just a few years ago against the Celtics. I thought he might have helped them, not win a series, but maybe win a game or something. It was just a weird thing. Like, it was just like, he's just going to run the same lineup out there. I'm going to run Bruce Brown. I'm going to run KD and Kyrie, Patty Mills. I'm going to hope he could hit some threes. Like, Patty Mills didn't have much of an impact on the series as I thought he would. Seth Curry, I thought, was good, very good in stretches and kept him in the game in game 4. But it just seemed like he didn't have a lot of options, maybe. All these guys you brought in, and that's the whole thing about the new NBA, is that this whole, like, and I've pushed for, we've all pushed in the past, well, the Celtics should look at this guy and bring him in if he's bought out. They should bring in DeAndre Jordan. They should bring in JaVale McGee. They should bring in ex-veteran player who's been discarded by another team who can help them. That doesn't work much anymore. Like, the whole, it works a little bit like, let's say, Milwaukee with Wesley Matthews, who had played for the Bucks and came back there and kind of came off the street, or maybe, a Lance Stevenson here and there. But the playing old heads ain't working no more. Look at all the guys that committed to Brooklyn. Remember, it's going to load it. Oh, Goran Dragic committed to Brooklyn. Aldridge committed to Brooklyn. Blake Griffin committed to Brooklyn. Like, how many of them dudes help? It's a league now, and I think Brad deserves a lot of credit for this, is that you either want guys in your team who are young and can play potentially or can play right now. The Celtics don't have a bunch of old heads on their bench just sitting there collecting dust. The Nets were a team that was built with a 2010s mentality. get a bunch of stars, get a bunch of old vets around them, try to play well. Remember, they gave up Jared Allen to keep DeAndre Jordan. They traded for James Harden and gave up Karis LeVert. Like, they've done so many strange things, to try to build this roster into a championship roster. And Steve Nash didn't have many options. I can't blame him for Sean Marks' mistakes. Although I don't know, I'll be honest. I mean, the reason Steve Nash got the job was his name. We don't know what kind of coach Steve Nash is. We still don't really know after 2 years. We don't know what kind of evaluator of talent, communicator he is, defense. They don't play no defense in Brooklyn. Like, what does he do? What does he bring? So I just thought the Celtics sent the Nets more into a tailspin of like, where do we go as an organization? Because they were like the trendy hot team in the East. Remember, in the mid-2000s, it was Miami. Then it was Cleveland. Then it became Brooklyn. Brooklyn's KD. Then that didn't last long because Milwaukee, now the team is Milwaukee, right? What's Brooklyn going to do? You going to go young and sign a bunch of young guys and try to draft well? You're going to bring in another new set of old heads? But I just think Ime outcoached Nash circles around him and had more options and had more youthful options, more useful players. You could throw LaMarcus out there, but he ain't going to defend. I get it. You can throw Blake out there, but Blake ain't going to stop nobody. Blake, and it's hard to watch Blake Griffin now. Like, we remember Blake jumping over cars, dunking on fools left and right, just being this athletic freak, and now he's literally a hustle guy. Now, that'll keep you in the league. It just shows you, quite honestly, like, how you can lose it. Because Blake ain't nothing but like 33, 34, Blake not 40. So I just think Nash had much limited options, thanks to his GM, but also didn't show me nothing as a coach anyway. Didn't say, I'm going to coach my ass off to win the one game in this series. Look at what Willie Green is doing in New Orleans without Zion Williamson, pushing the number one seed. I know they're not without Devin Booker, pushing the number one seed to 6 games. Look at Nick Nurse, down 3-0, won without Fred VanVleet last night, and won game 3 with VanVleet playing, or game 4 with VanVleet playing like a quarter. Like, that's freaking coaching. What has Nash proven? Nothing. He was a hot name. Everybody loved Steve Nash because he was a cool Canadian point guard, and they gave him a premium NBA job. That's not happening to a lot of other candidates like Ime. Ime was on that staff. They were, okay, see you later. You let Ime go to Boston and outcoach the hell of the coach he coached under? That's ridiculous to me. Like, the Nets got to look like, damn, we would let Ime walk. Well, we let the best coach on our staff leave to keep Steve Nash, and we still don't know what we have in Steve Nash, although he's a cool guy.
And wears nice shoes. Love his shoes. But Gary, to your point though, it's once again the Celtics hustled the Nets. They hustled them with the KG Paul Pierce trade, and Gary, just to double down on your point, not only did you get out-coached by the coach that you could have had that was on your staff, the two guys that kicked your ass the worst were Jalen and Jayson, who the Celtics drafted with your picks. Wow, so the Celtics whipped your ass with the coach that you could have had, and then whipped your ass with 2 players that were your players. So if I'm Sean Marks, I ain't picking up the phone if Brad Stevens or anyone with the Celtics come call. I don't want to deal with them.
Not for another 20 years.
I don't want to deal with them. They've hustled your franchise. They looking at you like, Mark, we got something for you.
Let's have a conversation.
You are the special. You are the daily special that they're hustling every time.
When we talk about coaching, it also comes down to the way that they manage their players. And as you both know, Robert Williams was returning from surgery. How do you think he was he managed well? Do you like the way that he was used in this series? Well,
I like the way that they made it really gradual, his return. They didn't, and to me it speaks to how they figured so many things out without him that reintegrating him, they wanted to be kind of a gradual thing. So it wouldn't just be this kind of, this is us with him, this is us without him. It's just like, let's just get him back into the flow of things. And he showed to me in limited minutes, he showed that he's pretty much where he was before the injury. I mean, there was some lobs that he was able to get his hands on that were just, there's maybe 3 or 4 guys in the planet that could get them, and he's one of them. And he's still able to get those lobs. I love the way that he was able to really make his presence felt without being the center of attention. It was a very Rob-like run that he had, but in much shorter spurts and dosages. And it was good to see him back out there. And I give Ime credit. He didn't lean on him too heavy. He just basically got him out there to get enough time before it was like a practice almost.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was worried that he was going to feel too much pressure to come back and overperform, but I do like the way he was eased into the game. Gary, what about you?
I thought Robert played okay. I think physically he still didn't quite look himself. Like, he was a little bit slow up and down the floor. I think he's got to get back in basketball shape. Real practices over the next couple of days. I think this break will help him over the next 3 or 4 days, get him some real 5-on-5, get that sweat up, get that endurance up, be ready to go. I thought he played okay in game 4. He had a couple silly fouls, fouling KD on that 3-pointer, and then fouling KD again with the Nets and the bonus. I thought he did okay for what, like, I'm not saying like, I thought he's good, he's healthy, it's good he's back, but I thought, like Sherrod said, it's gradual. He didn't look like mid-season form Rob. He looked rusty Rob. And I don't know if that will take another game or 2 for him to get it out, or whether he can get all that out in practice, where game 1 against Milwaukee or Chicago, likely Milwaukee, he'll be like prime, ready to go, Robert Williams. But I thought it was a blessing for them to have him back, and for him, to have another big option, because all the other bigs got in foul trouble too. Tice, and Horford got in foul trouble. And then Williams, I think, Williams himself had 4 fouls. So I thought it was good for them to get him that work, but I didn't think, oh, you look perfect. You look right.
Yeah.
No, I thought he definitely displayed some rust, but I think he'll be fine.
And 2 people that we do want to talk about, we have to talk about, is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And the meltdown that we saw on the floor. I'm sure you 2 heard Kyrie's comments post-game after the sweep about just regrouping, and him and Kev helping the front office manage this team. And there was no mention of Steve Nash, so that's drama in itself. What do we make of whatever went down in Brooklyn?
Get it, Gary.
Sherrod's just rubbing his forehead because he's just stressed out about it.
I mean, I don't know why anybody is at all ever surprised what Kyrie says anymore. I think there's a lack of self-awareness, and I don't think he can really help it. At this point, I don't think he means, ill will toward anyone. He just has his own agenda, his own path. He's not going to let anyone divert him from that path. And if it hurts people, he's not going to acknowledge that. And I think he hurt the team this year. I mean, the whole, his refusal to get vaccinated, the New York rules. Now, he plays for another team. This is not a topic. He can keep it moving, right? It just happened to be in Brooklyn. All the other guys made the commitments. Harden, Durant, in terms of getting vaccinated, like, we ready to make this run. We ready to take over, take what we should have had last year in terms of, if they were able to beat Milwaukee, they feel like they could have won a championship. And then Kyrie kind of screws it up with the vaccination, and then you're not going to play, and then the Nets back down, and his relationship with Kevin Durant and how that is, like, that's the one thing that I think the Celtics are just blessed at. 1, you got young stars, but 2, Tatum and Brown ain't trying to run the organization yet. Like, they're not trying to run things. They're not going and picking your team and going, we want to play for you and we're going to run things. You know, we're going to take over your club. You know, we ain't doing Harlem Nights where, you know, Richie, Danny, you know, we're going to take all your profits. We're not doing this. Okay. They're not running the show. Tatum and Brown they ain't playing GM. They ain't playing, you know, you need to sign this guy. Why did they get DeAndre Jordan? Because Kevin Durant won.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did Kyrie, you know, they signed Kyrie? Because that was a way to get Durant. Like, you don't want, like, I would never want to be the Brooklyn Nets in terms of just having players control, or the Los Angeles Lakers, where you have a controlling interest, like a controlling factor in LeBron James, telling Rob Pelinka, sign Russell Westbrook. You know, Tatum or Brown might give a suggestion, you know, if they get asked, but that's the good thing. The fortunate thing, if you're a Celtics fan, your two superstars don't have and don't desire to control and run the organization. And to me, Kyrie and Kevin are just running the Nets, and it's failed miserably. Like, nothing close to a championship. Oh, let's just run it back again next year. Durant's gonna be 34 next year. Okay, like who's gonna Bruce Brown, a free agent. Okay, Blake's probably gone. Dragic's probably gone. Aldridge's probably gone. So who are you gonna play? Who y'all gonna play with again? Y'all gonna play with Drummond's gone, right? So, you know, Curry, Mills, and Claxton, like that's your squad you rolling with? You know, like they need a lot of improvement. And Kyrie and especially had to take responsibility of like, I kind of botched this. Well, I didn't want it to be about me. Well, Kyrie, it's always about you. Like, it's always been about you. You're a narcissist. Like, it's always been about your interest, what makes you happy. I want to be happy and do things my way. If not, I ain't cooperating. I ain't doing a damn thing. I want out of Boston because, you know what? I just don't feel right here. So I want out of Cleveland. So if he doesn't ask out of Cleveland, Isaiah Thomas remains a Celtic. Mm-hmm. You affect people's lives when you do that whole instinctive, get me the hell out of here. But that's not only Kyrie. That's James Harden. That's other guys who have requested, the Ben Simmons and all that. You know, look at the lives that you affect when you pull this, I want out. You know, you got Seth Curry family, Andre Drummond got family on shore and school and all that. They got to pull their kids out of school and go to Brooklyn because Ben Simmons decided he want to play for the Sixers. So what you don't want, and the Celtics don't have, is a good thing, is superstars trying to run your organization. Mm-hmm. So people ain't taking the word of Durant and Irving anymore and just like, y'all go down the road together. I don't think people want Brooklyn to win. I don't think Brooklyn's that hot team that people want to really follow. I think people are tired of the Nets. Mm-hmm. People are just like, man, I'm not trying to hear about the Nets, whatever. You know, because they got out, you know, as I just mentioned before, Blake Griffin commit to the Nets. Marcus Aldridge, everybody wants to sign with the Nets. What happened? They lost in the first round. Like, you know, so let Kyrie and Kevin figure it out then, but I don't think they ever get back to championship contention.
And to your point, the two teams that are managed by players are now going to be sitting home watching the playoffs when you look at Brooklyn and LA. So clearly these teams need to just let the GMs and the front office do their jobs. Like you said, maybe they're open to suggestions, but you can't do all. Just do what you can on the floor. And then maybe when you retire, go to the front office and make change there. But you can't run a team in play.
Well, so much of this is about trust. Specifically trusting your teammates to do what they're supposed to do, trusting the front office to do what they're supposed to do, but mainly trusting yourself that if you do what you do, then everyone else is going to do their job too. And Kyrie, Durant, LeBron, they're part of a generation where they don't buy that. They have this idea of what player empowerment looks and feels like, and I think it's a little bit twisted from what it really is and what it should be. Player empowerment means for me at least, I conceive it as players understanding the ability that they have to significantly influence things for the greater good of players. And the problem I run into with Kyrie and KD and LeBron is they see that player empowerment as it benefits themselves. Like, I don't see how you forming a super team in Brooklyn is going to help anyone other than the players that you're joining forces with. And again, it absolutely blew up in their faces like nothing anyone had seen before. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they just didn't trust one another. They didn't trust the process. And now they're going to have trouble convincing others to join them in trusting the process. If you are thinking about playing for Brooklyn and you're looking at Kyrie, you're looking at KD, you're like, okay, KD, I can kind of rock with him because he's kind of stayed true to who he is. He has been like, look, I'm just going to do my job. I'm going to go out here and get 25, 7, and 7. And rest of y'all do what y'all do and we win. That didn't happen. Kyrie, he can do the same, but maybe he doesn't feel like doing it today. Maybe he's got some, I don't know, some sage to burn, or he's got some, meeting to go to, or he's just not really feeling like giving you all that he has, because you can't trust him. You can't trust him. That's why James Harden is in Philly, because he couldn't trust Kyrie. He couldn't trust the process anymore. And when you're a great player and you have a limited window of greatness left ahead of you, you're not trying to join forces with no cat that you can't trust, that you can't believe in. There's no point in that. Yeah. There's no point.
Well, I know Gary did want to touch on, before we get into where the Celtics head to next, the Most Improved Player Award. Ja Morant was the recipient of it and actually gave the award to our favorite guy, Desmond Bane. We talk about him a lot on this podcast. What are your critiques for the Most Improved Player Award? How do you think it should be changed?
Get it, Gary. Get it.
You're funny. Okay, so I wrote in the Globe, talked to the NBA official about why there's no guidelines for some of these awards. Because I do think people have asked me, well, Gary, what's MVP? Is MVP the best player in the league? Or Giannis? Or is it the player that's most valuable to his team? The player that gets their team the most wins? The player that, Nikola Jokic, who obviously Denver wouldn't be anywhere without him because they got all the injuries. Or, Joel Embiid, because he played without Ben Simmons and half of James Harden. Like, there is no guidelines, okay? And I think MVP is one of those I think you can get away with, because I think every year you have a good crop of, obviously, candidates, and that, this year will be split. Who knows who's going to win? Most Improved Player is the one that it really perplexes me and annoys me, because there's no damn way Ja Morant should be winning Most Improved Player. He's a damn Rookie of the Year, number 2 overall pick.
He's the most improved rookie of the year.
Most Improved Player to me is a player, but there's no guidelines. So you literally have people thinking, star players, and all the 3 guys who were top 3 were all on the All-Star team this year. Darius Garland, who is just making that transition. Okay, I guess. DeJounte Murray, who's I think a more credible candidate. Ja was a number 2 overall pick and Rookie of the Year, and it's just shooting up in the air. He went from star to superstar. I don't think that that's what the Most Improved Player was designed for, is the guys that are going from star to superstar. To me, I'll tell you, I voted first for Jordan Poole. Okay, a guy's come out of nowhere and been like the 3rd Splash Brother. Secondly, I voted for Anthony Simmons, a guy who came out of IMG Academy, was doing very little over the first 2 years. And this year, there's a reason why the Portland traded CJ McCollum, because they got Anthony Simmons, and Simmons added 10 points to his scoring average. And I'm the only person that voted for Max Strus, because Max Strus went from G Leaguer to a damn starter for the Miami Heat, the number 1 seed in the East, and displaced and putting Duncan Robinson on the bench. He got my 3rd place vote. To me, that is what Most Improved is. Changing your role from, let's say, a bench guy to a capable. I thought Grant Williams might have got a vote or 2. He didn't get any votes. So too, yeah. I know Robert Williams got a couple of votes, and I think that's what it's about. To me, damn Rookie of the Year, all-star franchise player is not the most improved player. Like, to me, now, if you go from 18 points a game to 33, okay. If you go to make a dramatic jump in stats and all that, but to me, like, I think that I know why he gave away the award. The award is beneath him.
Yeah.
He won MVP. That's why he gave it to Desmond Bane, who was another candidate who could have garnered votes.
Well,
but
Desmond should have got it.
There's no freaking guidelines for most improved player, which annoys me, because you literally have people voting for the best superstar who can't, some people, I thought Steph Curry should have got a couple because he bounced back. Like, no, I thought this was an award for players. If you look at the history of the most improved player awards, guys like, Sherrod remembers Darryl Armstrong for the Orlando Magic, like guys who like made something of a career, who were kind of there. Like I said, I think the best example that local fans will know is like a Grant Williams, a guy who turned himself from, should they bring him back next year? I mean, does he do anything for his team to, a real key piece, a guy who can play the positions, hit the three-point shot? Grant is vastly improved. I thought that's what the award was for, not Ja Morant. Like, I love Ja Morant, but Ja had no pitfalls, or Ja's going, whoo. He came to the league ready. Like, he came to the league serving fools. So what has he improved at? He just got more efficient as he's gotten. I just don't think that's what the award was designed for. I don't understand why he won. Darius Garland, okay, I guess, a guy who's kind of taking Cleveland on his shoulders, but I don't think he's improved. I just think he's taken that normal progression. So that was my speech on it. I understand why Ja gave and I'm not blaming Ja at all. Ja, great player, but I don't think he was qualified for the award. I think it should have went to one of the other guys.
Well, his gesture, I think, speaks volumes to how I think a lot of people felt. I don't think he was the most improved player on his team, let alone the damn league. Yeah. Desmond Bane was. Yeah. And so to me, it makes a joke of the award. I mean, you go back and you start looking at the folks who've won this award in the past, you're not going to find too many guys that went high in the draft. The last most improved player that went fairly high was Brandon Ingram back in 2020. And Brandon, again, he had made that leap from being a so-so player to being a borderline all-star type player. And so that gets you there. But Ja was already an all-star without the damn award. There was no point in his career trajectory where you question how good a player he was. He was a top 2 pick, and his entire career, he's played like a top 2 pick. And how the hell do you give an award like that to someone who was expected to be great and they're living up to the expectation? I don't know what the hell people who voted for him saw. I don't get it. And Ja, I'll be pissed off if they give me that award too. I'm like, do you see these fools I dunk on every damn week? Most improved cats don't do that all the time like I do. Most improved cats aren't the highlight that everyone is coming to see. Most improved players, they hope that they can have maybe a month or two like me. I've been doing it my entire career. So what that most improved? But no, it makes the award a joke. And I really do hope that they, between now and next year, they establish some criteria for some of these awards, because again, it's only going to look just a bigger farce if they don't do something about it.
Agreed. Well, looking ahead to this Celtics next round, most likely it'll be the Bucks unless they blow their lead. What are your expectations for this series?
Get it, G.
A very rugged, tough series, but you're giving, Ime some time to prepare for Giannis and prepare for Jrue Holiday. They've played really well without Chris Middleton, although Chris Middleton is a Celtic killer. I mean, he has put it on the Celtics over the years. So who knows when he'll come back? I think during the series he's likely to come back. but very dangerous team. A lot of weapons. Brook Lopez makes a big difference. Bobby Portis is a guy that is a hard matchup because he's 6'10", 6'11". He can shoot from the mid-range into three. He can post up a little bit. He brings a lot of different elements to the game. So a lot of, a long series. It's going to be a huge challenge. I think this will be the bigger challenge if you put together Milwaukee and then Miami. I think Milwaukee's a bigger challenge than Miami. So this might be the biggest challenge they face. It's like when, the Celtics of the big three or whatever, faced, Cleveland with LeBron in the semifinals, and then went and had to play Detroit or Orlando. I remember 2010 where they beat Cleveland in the semis or whatever. Then they faced the Magic, and the Magic, even though, they were the defending Eastern Conference champions, they were the easier opponent for the Celtics. So I think this might be one of those cases where your biggest challenge comes in the semifinals.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Milwaukee, and remember, they're defending champs. There's a reason why that they won that title, and they brought back a lot of the fellas from that team. So they're definitely going to be a formidable foe if you're the Boston Celtics. To me, this is one of those series that I think that at the end of the day, as much as we're going to talk about Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think it's those role players that are going to dictate who moves on. The guy that I'm going to keep close, to me, they're probably not going to be matched up against each other a lot, but I do believe when they're on the floor, they need to make an impact, and that's Bobby Portis and Grant Williams. I think those two guys could very well tilt this series one way or the other because Bobby Portis plays hard. I love watching him play because that he ain't taking no days off. He ain't taking no plays off. He is coming with the heat. And with the crazy wide eyes, when he gives you those eyes,
you don't want to be there when he got those eyes.
but at the same token, you got to give Grant Williams his props because Grant Williams has been playing phenomenal in the postseason. I mean, you look at the numbers that he posted while guarding, Kevin Durant. Durant was something like I think it was 6 for 18 or something like that when Grant was defending him. Really low shooting percentage, and Grant again showed the ability to knock down shots when he had open looks for the most part. So how those individual guys impact the series, I think will go far in determining who comes away. And the other matchup, obviously Lopez and Al Horford. Or Lopez and Al Horford / Time Lord. Because Lopez, he's a legit stretch big. They didn't see anything even remotely close to that from Brooklyn. So, and Lopez can make free throws. Claxton, my goodness, made Shaq look like Ray Allen from the free throw line. And that's hard to do.
Not him getting hack of clacks like during a playoff run. I
don't know.
Already? Gary, so early?
Gary, I don't know if I've never seen a guy miss 10 free throws in a row on any level. 10 in a row. And at the crib. We ain't talking about like with hostile fans. We talk about at the crib. Could you imagine if every arena had like food giveaways? If you miss 2 free throws, that dude feeding the whole arena. Feeding your family for weeks. For weeks. With them bricks he put up.
We'll also shout out to our producer Ahmed, who pointed out that the Celtics do have the best odds to win the East at plus 140, and then they have the second best odds to win it all at plus 300, and that's right behind Golden State. And I already tweeted out that I want to see a Golden State Boston Celtics.
Me too.
NBA Finals. So we'll see if that comes to pass.
That's what I want. Well, I mean, just along those same lines, Kwani, one of the things that I think people forget about Golden State, when their dynasty began, they ran into so many things that broke their way that they had no control over.
The Celtics breaking that run?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If you're the Celtics, you might face Milwaukee, and Chris Middleton, who usually kills you, may not be around to play. You played Brooklyn, and they got 0 out of Ben Simmons. And if you're able to move on and play Miami, you don't know where Kyle Lowry's back is going to be, or because he's dealing with some type of injury. So there's the potential where you could be facing every team you face in the playoffs will have a key player either unavailable or injured to the point where they'll be limited in some capacity. And the Golden State Warriors, when their dynasty began, they had a similar situation to that. Patrick Beverley was, I think, with Houston that time, and he was out for most, if not all, of that series. I believe they faced Mike Conley when he was in Memphis, and he had like the facial fracture thing where he missed a couple of games. But at the end of the day, if you're Boston, you got to take care of your business. I mean, it doesn't matter if Chris Middleton isn't available. You still got to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. So
yeah. And to that point, when you look at Golden State and Boston's rosters respectively, the people that were injured on their roster are just now getting back to full strength. So hopefully if we get to that point, it will be a very fun matchup, I think, overall. Hopefully by the time we're back next week, we'll know who they're playing and we'll give you more details on that. This is the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani A. Lunis for Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. Thank you all for listening.